Welcome to the Gold Standard here on the 440 Sports Network. My name is Braden Gall. You can get to me on the internet at Braden Gall. Good morning, Emma. How are you?
Good morning. I am well. How are you?
Anything happened this week? Like in hockey, at the Preds, last weekend, anything?
I don't know. Pretty slow week, I think. I don't know what we're going to talk about,
Look,
but
Barry
we'll
Barry
come up with something.
Trotz. Barry Trotz is like every person I tried to date in when I was in my 20s. I'm getting very mixed signals from Barry Trotz. I want to know if he wants to compete right now or if he wants to dive deeper into the rebuild. We have so much to get to. You guys at the chat at Lower Broad Hockey, I asked so many questions that Adam and I couldn't even get to them on the other episode. And so we had to consolidate into just some draft conversation. So I will ask you about some of the Preds draft strategy today, but I want to focus more on the big picture. I want to focus on Barry Trotz's vision. I want to focus on the strategy. He made a big trade, of course, getting rid of two, I would say, very veteran and important pieces, especially grit and glue and defensive pieces, situational pieces, and Colton Sissons and Jeremy Lauzon. He's brought in two new defensemen. They have, quote, fixed the defense core. I believe on a particular podcast a few weeks ago, I think we said they could fix the defense core in one offseason, possibly. And they went and drafted four of them, traded for one, signed another, and have like 11 more options. So there's like 14 different defensemen that they can choose from. So should be better. That was the goal. And then, of course, Barry Trotz says, let the young kids play. I'm paraphrasing here. So lots of stuff to get to. I want to get your thoughts on all of this, and we'll try to answer a lot of those questions from the chat as well. We'll have some more coverage for you coming up at Lower Broad Hockey the rest of the week, so stay tuned. We got Dev Camp going on. I haven't even taken a breath yet. That was all one breath and this wind-up. So I can't wait to talk to you about all this stuff because I think there's a lot to get to. So we'll do all of that. And, of course, thanks to Sinkers Beverages and Shotgun Willie's Barbecue for keeping this product free for all of you. Sinkers Beverages, by the way, tickets are available now. Basement East is where the party's going to be to celebrate Sinkers' 40th birthday party. So come on out. There's going to be food and drinks and vinyl and giveaways and raffles and music. It's going to be a ton of fun. It's at Basement East on August 9th. Tickets are $10. That is not very much money, and the money goes to charity. I don't know what else you need to hear. It sounds like a good time. Basement East is one of my favorite venues. Reminds me of old Nashville. If you're a new Nashvilleian and you want to know what old Nashville feels like, Basement East is one of those places that feels a little bit like old Nashville. So, all right, I guess I'll start very, very broadly with you. And I think that's going to be, are we trying to compete this year or not? Is Barry Trotz and the Nashville Predators trying to compete this year or not?
I'm going to give you a yes, but. Yes, but they're also trying to be competitive in the future. They're not going all in this year. Going all in would have been trading the number 5 pick and like all of these future assets to be, it would have been like doing what Tampa or what Florida did last year. But I do think that Barry Trotz recognizes that with this roster where it is right now, you have to compete. You can't have a roster with Steven Stamkos and Philip Forsberg and Roman Josi and say, we're just kind of buying time until the next group gets here, because that next group is not going to be ready in like the next year. So you have a few years left of these guys, this quote core that you have right now that I think you have to try and maximize. Now I would have thought Colton Sissons was a part of that group, but apparently not. I just think
that's my biggest issue with the trade is that the trade in particular, not anything else, but just that trade, which is Colton Sissons and Jeremy Lauzon and half of Colton Sissons' salary, which is not a lot of money, like 1.3, I think, right? And then to pick up Nicolas Hague, who's a 26-year-old left-handed defenseman who is like 11 feet tall. And, he plays third-line minutes. I thought when the trade happened, this is clearly a guy that they don't think is a third-pairing defenseman. Otherwise, you don't give him $5.5 million, 4 years, $22 million. But my thought on that trade, and we'll get to your thoughts and we'll expand on it, but that trade does not make the team better today. Lauzon and Sissons on this team this year is going to be better than Hague this year. I could see investing in Hague long-term and having him be an answer long-term. And he's better than all the guys that they have the Willsby, Blankenberg, Barron, Osterley, like all those, like that whole crew. Like he's better than all those guys. So, but I don't know if they're better today with that. Just that trade.
But that's the point, though. That's kind of where I'm at with the yes, but like they're not just trying to be better today. Jeremy Lauzon and Colton Sissons maybe make your team better today, but Sissons was probably not going to be here beyond this year. Lauzon maybe not beyond next year. And in Hague, I think you have a very similar player to Lauzon. I think that he's, similar style of play. He's a defensive defenseman. He's a big dude. He's, Lauzon is not small, and Hague is even bigger. He's younger. You've now got him for 4 years, and he is kind of in that range where he can kind of be one of those bridge the gap type players. So I don't really hate that part of it. To me, if you're looking at the impact right now, Lauzon for Hague is almost like a 1-for-1 to me, like replacement sort of. I think that's pretty
I
similar.
See what you're saying. I think Hague is slightly better than Lauzon, or
yes,
could be slightly better than Lauzon long term. But you gave up not a premier player, but a critical piece to being good this year, in my opinion.
Yes, so that's where I was getting to with that. Is that to me, losing Lauzon and getting Hague in return, I'm not too mad about that. Losing Sissons, I think, is really going to hurt you. I understand that he was probably, if we're just being realistic about it, I think that Sissons probably would have been traded at the deadline this year.
Yep.
He probably wouldn't have finished the season in Nashville. But at that point, at the deadline, he is the perfect deadline acquisition for a contender. Every contender is looking for depth forwards. And so he would be perfect for that. He's a two-way guy. He can play on special teams. Like, he's got playoff experience. He's perfect for that. So I think if you had waited till the deadline when teams are a little bit more desperate, maybe you get something more for him in return. It seems odd to me that, I mean,
sorry, Eskokin says could have gone for a first at the deadline. Sissons could have, and I think that's possible. If Vegas goes 2 rounds in the playoffs this year, that conditional 3rd round pick, which I did not include in the deal, which I should have, they get a 3rd round pick back. That turns into a 2nd round pick. So to say that you get a 4-year defenseman in Hague and a 2nd round pick in theory, because I think Vegas is right near the top of the list of winning the cup from the West next year. Like, they're now one of the favorites with probably, pick your teams, right? Dallas, Edmonton, Colorado, whatever. That's similar to getting a 1st round pick 1-for-1 at the deadline from him, right? I mean, if you get a 2nd and Hague and you give up Lauzon, it's not that different from a trade that could have happened at the deadline, possibly. And I'm not trying to rose-colored glasses here.
I don't know that you get a first for Sissons at the deadline, just because you're only getting him for half a year, and his salary is low as it is. So I think that it is what it is there. I think if you really don't know much about the player or about the teams involved, and you're just a casual fan and you look at this trade from that perspective, it looks like Sissons was just kind of a throw-in, which is not how Nashville is going to feel the impact of that. I don't think. To me, you're going to feel that. I mean, honestly, Lauzon didn't play for most of the year last year anyway. So
I think Lauzon was the throw-in, honestly. Like, I think it was Sissons for Hague, and they said, that's not good enough for us. What else can you, like, hey, give us a 3rd, we'll give you Lauzon. Like, it feels like Sissons and Hague were the main pieces of that. I also think, don't you think Sissons is re-signed instantly? Like, once you're around him, once you have him on your team, you have him in your locker room, you deploy him the way you can in the situations you can, at that price point, aren't you re-signing Sissons for like a 4-year deal to be your 3rd line center? Like,
once again, I'll hit you with a yes, but because they just signed Marner, they got to give a new contract to Eichel next year too. Like, they've got to be a little careful with how they're throwing around their money.
That ring for Sissons, he'll take a hometown discount to try to win a 2nd ring once he gets his 1st one this year.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, it's not going to be like, oh, immediate yes, because they've got some bigger fish to fry in Vegas right now.
So I want to try to work through a lot of these questions, which is Chris says, what is the plan on the right side of the D? Well, as soon as that trade happened, then free agency opens and they go and they sign Nick Perbix, which Adam talked about specifically on the show on Monday. 2-year, $5.5 million deal. This one sounds like a way better deal. He is also fairly young, 27 years old, 6'4", 205 pounds, 3 years in Tampa. I think you could probably expect like 5 to 10 goals, maybe 15 to 20 assists per season. If he kind of continues to get better. He's only played 3 seasons. I think he's a right-handed guy. So I guess my question is sort of a 3-parter here, which is, what do you think of the player and the signing? And then how does he fit into the lineup? And what do you think, if you want to try to take a stab at what you think the defense pairings will be, please go for it. I do think the conversation around Hague was vastly, it was all like, I can't believe you gave this up for a third pairing defenseman. My initial thought was, there's no way you give him that money if you think he's a third pairing defenseman. And Barry Trotz said as much yesterday. He is a top 4 defenseman. So it seems like Hague and Perbix are in the top 4. Tell me what I mean, Josi, Hague, Perbix, and Shea are your 4 best players right now, potentially at that position.
Correct. And so I think, this, looking at it right now and knowing things can change and additions and subtractions can be made between now and the start of the season. But as it is right now, if the season started tomorrow, you've got to assume that Josi is going to be playing mostly on the right side. With that being your top 4. We tried Josi and Shea last year, didn't really work. And honestly, I didn't really expect it to, because they're 2 very similar players. You need Josi with a more defensive defenseman. So I could see Josi with Hague.
I think it's Hague, Josi, Shea, Perbix.
And Perbix, yeah. And then the third pairing, whatever. I don't know. I mean, put whoever you want down there.
That's the key, is that if you are pushing the remainder of the righties down to the third pairing, then you could do Molendyk and Barron, Molendyk and Willsby. You could do Blankenberg and Willsby, Blankenberg and Barron. You have so many, Stasny, and there are so many like decent and interesting options. I do think they have solved the defense problem, though, for the short. Like, I think they have enough pieces, and they're going to develop, that I think they have solved a lot of their problems on defense. I think they're not elite, but I think they solved some of their problems.
Yeah, I would say right now, if it were up to me, which it's not, but if it was, my third pairing right now would be Willsby and Barron. I think because, I don't know, Molendyk and Barron scares me a little bit as a pairing.
On the defensive end?
Yeah, on the defensive end, but also as a new, a fresh new player in the NHL. I don't know that Justin Barron is quite the safety net that you want to pair him with. On the back end. So I would maybe go Willsby, Barron. And, not at all to say we won't see Molendyk in the NHL this year. I think we will. I just don't know that it'll be at the start of the season. So and another fun little tidbit that we learned at Dev Camp on the first day, Molendyk told us that he spent the first 4 years in Saskatoon playing on the right side, and he actually liked it. So good, handy little piece of information there.
4 years on the right. I think now this is not going to happen because it's not enough defense, but Stasny and Molendyk together.
Oh, the skating.
Holy smokes.
That would just be fun to watch.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
I don't know how much defense would happen, but the skating would just be.
Put him out there with the McCarron line. Every time McCarron's out there, put out the guys who can create offense and skate like crazy. And Mitch says
you're basically just inversing the roles there. Like the McCarron line plays defense, and those guys go out and score.
Burnett said in a radio interview last year that Josi prefers to play offhand. I'm not sure if he would vote right-handed or right side if he had to, but he's okay and he's totally capable. Hague will become the stay-at-home protector on the left side. I think that's about right. I know that Josh, by the way, good to see you, Josh, on Friday. He had said something about Martin. I do think we'll talk about Martin in the draft coming up, because I do think it's almost like it happened like 100 years ago on Friday night.
Yeah.
But we'll get to that, because I think we're over our skis on Brady Martin analysis right now. I think everybody needs to take a deep breath. So
yeah, especially those who are calling him Austin Watson 2.0. Like, please just take a breath.
There's literally no part of his. Okay, they like to hit things. Other than that, there's maybe a bad choice of words. Go ahead. Sorry. Save me.
to go back to the defense, Braden, stop talking. To go back to the defense, I know that Barry Trotz has taken a lot of criticism, and deservedly so, for some of the moves that he's made, and with the defense this past year. But if you're just looking at this objectively, if you could try to see it objectively, he went into this offseason saying, I'm going to fix the defense. I'm going to get a defenseman to play with Roman Josi. And this is going to be our area of
We're going to get bigger.
We're going to get bigger and younger. He did all of that. He did all of that. He did everything he said he was going to do. And so
and didn't spend a ton of extra money. Like Lauzon at $2 million, Colton at it's almost $5 million between the two of them. I know he's keeping about $1.5 million, 5.5 plus 2.5. I mean, it's a couple extra $1 million on a salary cap where they have a lot of space. So
yeah, they had the space. They still have the space. I think too, knowing that this year's free agent class is very thin, really in general, but especially in the right shot defenseman category. I think they got the best possible option that they could have on the free agent market, because
agree.
The only defenseman, right shot defenseman, who I think was by all accounts ranked higher than Perbix was Brent Burns. And can you imagine if Barry Trotz had signed another 40-year-old? The kind of backlash he would have gotten. So I think Perbix is the perfect option. And I will say on Perbix, people are like, wow, who is this guy? He's a third pairing guy in Tampa. He was a bottom 4 defenseman in Tampa. I personally think that he was underutilized in Tampa, and I think he thinks he was underutilized in Tampa, which is why he left in free agency, because he knew he was going to get more money elsewhere. And even though he got 2 years, 5.5, that's a steal for Barry Trotz. If that is going to be a top 4 defenseman for you. If it is going to be Shea and Perbix, which I think is probably what they're going to try to start, I think that's great. I think that I think that he has a lot of upside that we maybe didn't get to see in Tampa, because he's playing behind guys like, I don't know, Victor Hedman, who, he's going to get pushed down the lineup a little bit. And so I think that this is, of the options that were available, Barry Trotz got the best one. Played with Steven Stamkos for whatever that's worth. Hague played with Marchessault, and Holla. So, I think it's just,
they got a 26 and 27-year-old who have a combined 9 years in the NHL at less than $8 million total per year, who are both 6'4" taller.
Which is exactly what he said he was going to do.
They have size, they have a little bit of upside, they have experience, and they're younger, and one of them's right-handed. So I think back to our original, hey, what's the timeline for this rebuild look like? Our opinion was by the end of next year, they could have the defense core figured out. And if you're telling me that they have 7 or 8 guys on roster, again, Blankenberg, Willsby, Stasny, Molendyke, those Barron, half those guys might not play. And so I think they do have a ton of options. They can be creative with how they want to put the roster together. I think we kind of know what the top 4 is going to look like. I do hope that Tanner Molendyke makes the team out of camp. I think it's okay for fans to say, I want to see Tanner Molendyke. And so I think that's okay. So I think if you're talking, and I know a lot of you asked this, Jeff says, what's Barry's vision for the future? We'll get to some of the other stuff, some of the other questions, but that one in particular was sort of the vision. And I think, as we get to the draft strategy as well, I think you can see the vision because he drafted 4 defensemen. That also ties into this strategy of restock the defense pool. He trades up to get Cameron Reed, which means he really wanted to go get him. He stuck with his instincts and gut, for whatever that's worth, on Brady Martin at 5, who I think is a very good player. They took a shot at Riker Lee. They got a goaltender at value. They got another defenseman at value later in Alex Huang. And so I think the vision is there, especially when he comes out and says we needed to fix the defense in front of Juuse Saros, and we want to let the young forwards play. And right now, not a lot blocking any of those young forwards to come up and play, because right now your starting centers are probably Ryan O'Reilly, Fedor Svechkov, Eric Holla, and Michael McCarron. So there is space and time for Brady Martin to work his way into that lineup. Now, How about this? Tell everybody the rule on Brady Martin. He can play 9 games, but then he can't go to the AHL, correct?
Correct. He's not old enough to go to the AHL. So he can get a 9-game tryout at the NHL level. This is what we were dealing with Molendyk last year. He can get a tryout at the NHL level for 9 games where it doesn't affect his ELC and then go back to junior. Or he can just go straight back to junior out of camp, which is what ended up happening with Molendyk. What I see happening with Brady Martin realistically is that it will be very similar to what we saw with Molendyk last year, where he will be one of the last remaining guys. Like, he'll be one of the final cuts at camp. I think they want to get an extended look at him before they send him back to junior, because I think right now, especially with like what a precarious spot this team is in with their center depth, I understand that Martin has the highest upside of all of those guys. Like, he has the highest ceiling, but he's at this point in his career, he's got the lowest floor at the NHL level because he does not have any NHL experience. So I think we see him stay. I think we see him stick around at camp for a while. But I don't see him making the roster out of camp. And I don't at all think that's a bad thing.
I don't think it's a bad thing either. I think they're in a more unique situation. So let's talk Martin in the draft here. Sinkers, Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Josh says, I had time to think on it. I'm over not picking the guy I wanted. I'm full go on Brady Martin. Future captain, will play the hard minutes, score big goals, and lead the team. And Josh had asked earlier on the chat about sort of his offensive game. And Jeffrey had asked, is it possible that Martin could be viewed as instant impact? Now, here's what I would say. Number one, you need something to sell people right now. You need something that is exciting and interesting and fun and new. And the highest drafted offensive player in 25 years making the roster out of camp, and it doesn't cost you anything. You put him on the ice, you sell tickets, people get excited. Doesn't really actually matter what happens in the games. Now, unless you think you're trying to win a cup, which that seems insane, I think he needs to play the 9 games, because here's the difference. I think he's far more ready than Tanner Molendyk was at this time last year. This is a guy who I think he's not going to make the team permanently. Here's what I would say. I think there's like a 5% chance he makes the full-time roster out of camp and is just like an 18-year-old player from now on, like Scott Hartnell back in the day or whatever. I think there's a very small chance that happens. I will say 5 to 10% if he's as good as everybody says he is. And I think he is very good. I think there's like a 60 to 70% chance he plays the 9 games. And I think he should play the 9 games because I think the team needs to see what he is, and they need to sell the fans on this thing that they're building. And putting your brand new number 5 overall pick, Seth Jones, they did it. He was probably ready. So I think there's a chance he's ready. I don't think fans should think that. I think they should go into it saying whatever he gives us is cool. Whatever he does is fine. I think your scenario is probably the most likely, but I would want to see him play. I would want to see him play out of camp, at least the 9 games, and then send him to, is it OHL, right? Send him back to the OHL and have him finish out his whatever it is, 4 years or his birthday, and then he can go to the AHL. And by this time next year, he should be, just like Tanner Molendyk should be fighting for a roster spot. So I do think you can have higher expectations for Martin than you can for Molendyk. Like, the roster's wide open at this point for him to earn the job. Like a third line center, you're not asking him to do too much. It's not a playoff team yet. It's not, like there's low expectations for that role if that's what he earns.
Correct. I think the roster is more open for him than it was for Molendyk at this time last year. However, all I'm saying here is I would caution not to, like you're saying, don't think that just because it's wide open that he's guaranteed a spot, because he's not. Yeah, and Barry Trotz said too, yesterday he was talking about, he acknowledged that the center depth, not great. He acknowledged it, and he did not try to sugarcoat it. Like, if for anyone saying, what's the plan? Like, look, the plan for right now is to have admittedly subpar center depth and try to win in other ways. That's the way that he said it. So it's scoring from the wings and it's strong defense. And if you look at this roster, you have that. So again, I'm not saying, again, we were all scarred by last year. And I understand that what the roster looks like on paper does not mean anything about what's gonna happen this year. But I think if you are starting from a clean slate here, and Barry Trotz says, I want to score from the wings and I want to have strong defense, you have the roster to do that. So I think that you kind of have to just be a little patient with it, because the center depth is not, like you had said, Braden, you can fix the defense in one off season. You can't fix the center depth in one off season. So that's going to take a little bit longer.
I mean, honestly, I think what we said on that episode was like, fix the defense this year, let the young guys play. And that's literally what Barry Trotz came out and said. So obviously he's a huge, avid, longtime diehard listener of the Gold Standard podcast.
Sure.
Describe Martin's offensive game. I think here's my take on the entire draft pick, having time to think about it, kind of like Josh. First of all, I would like to say that if you read our article, there's only one person that predicted Brady Martin. Just want to throw that out there. So if you're taking a victory lap on predicting Brady Martin, you didn't put it in print. Greg Wyshynski, Michael Gallagher, Adam Vingan, Emma Lingan, Jeremy K. Gober.
I wasn't taking a victory lap on Martin.
I know you weren't. Here's the thing. Would I have taken James Hagens? Do I think they should have taken James Hagens? Yes. I think he was the bigger shot with bigger upside. Am I positive that James Hagens is a number one center? More so than Brady Martin. Am I positive that Brady Martin isn't a number one center? No. No one can be, because most of you listening haven't watched either of these two people play hockey at any point. So I think it was very predictable what he did. I understand why people are upset, but he is not a bad player. He's a very, very good prospect and a very good player. And my thought on the Gold Standard Extra was that this is a player who will be in the running for the captaincy when Roman Josi is gone. That is what I view this as and everyone says Sam Bennett, and I think that's fair. I think they should be looking at Jonathan Toews, not from a size standpoint, but that's the type of game you want from him, which is I can get to 65 points a year. I'm going to play two ways. I'm going to be a bona fide rock star in the locker room. People love me. They rally around me. I make everyone better. I'm going to dig pucks out of the corner. I'm going to scrap in the middle of the ice. I can do everything. And I think he can do that. The question is, how good? Is it like a 70, 80, 90 points, or is it like 50, 60 points? And obviously it'll be tied to Hagens and Martin. I don't think Martin was a better pick necessarily than Brady Martin, unless Martin's a Hall of Famer, which is possible, but nobody knows. So I've always sort of been like, I see the vision. I also understand fans' frustration with, wait, you're drafting the motor guy, you're drafting the compete guy over the upside talent guy. You're going right back to how you coach the team, Barry. Defense, goaltending, score from the wing, motor, Predators way. So I understand the Predators fans' frustration with the decision-making, but they clearly executed their vision, and they did it in free agency. They did it in the trades. They did it in draft. And now the strategy is fix the defense, let the young guys play. I see the vision for it all.
I do too. And I'm with you. I understand, as someone who put in print that James Hagens would have been my pick at number 5. I get it. As Nashville, as this team has not had a chance to pick this high in the draft since they picked Seth Jones. This would be their best chance in their entire franchise history to get a super skilled forward in a skilled center in the top 5 of the draft. Hagens obviously he was the skill guy. He would have been the skill guy. And so I understand why they wouldn't want why fans would be upset about that. I get it. I understand the shock value, but I think not everyone, that's not fair, but I think a lot of people were looking at this as very black and white, where it's like, Hagen's good, Martin bad. And that's just how they're seeing it. And it's like, Martin is not a bad player. He's such a different player. I really like the Toews comparison, actually. I think that's a really good way to look at him, because again, I think people like to grab onto the sound bites and the things that they see on social media or on TV or whatever. And it's just like, oh, he's gritty.
He's not good.
Yeah, well, they're like, he's gritty, he's tough, he lives on a farm. Ugh, what the hell, Barry? And it's like, okay, that doesn't mean that that's all he does. Like,
sounds like Shea Weber, actually.
I think that here's the
It sounds
thing.
like Mike Fisher is what it sounds like.
I think that they are, again, well, actually, perfect segue into what I'm about to say. Shea Weber, Mike Fisher, the Nashville Predators just drafted their future captain.
Yep.
They just drafted their future captain because they are preparing for life after Roman Josi, which is absolutely what they have to be doing at this stage in his career, at this stage in their franchise history. I mean, you have to start thinking about your next core, because we talk about, oh, the young players, you have Svechkov, Evangelista, LaRue, Kemmel, whoever you want to talk about, like throw into that group. But who's your core? Like you have to have a glue guy, a guy at the center of that.
Well, and
And
here's the other thing. The glue guy and the intangibles guy and the motor guy and the gritty guy doesn't also have to be bad at offense.
yes,
Like, that's why I like the Taves comp, is because Taves
yes,
was, well, again, he was never an 80-point guy. He's only, I think he was 80 points one time, 70 points one time. This is a 65, 68 point player, not a 100 point Patrick Kane, Marner, Kucherov.
Austin
Like
Matthews.
that's not his stuff. But what's the value you place on all the stuff he did bring to the table? Well, it got 3 cups under his leadership. And so I'm not suggesting that that's Brady Martin is. My point is, you can go from, if James Higgins is an 80-point player and Brady Martin is a 60-point player, but James Higgins doesn't make people around him better, and Brady Martin does, there's tremendous value in those 15 or 20 points. I think we are too caught up in that. I think the other stuff is critical when you're building a culture. So I get the pick. It doesn't mean I would have done it, but I get it. And I think it was an overreaction, anti-negative. I think we're starting to come back around to, oh, this is a pretty talented guy. He's going to be pretty good. He's going to score dirty goals. He's going to be on the power play. I think he scored 33 goals last year in like 70 games. He's gonna make stuff happen on the boards, and he's also gonna be like 205 when he becomes a man. Like, you 6 foot 185. Once you become a professional, you're probably gonna put on 15 pounds, maybe 20. And if you do, you're over 200 pounds. You're all of a sudden you're a full time. You could play number 1 center at that size with that kind of tenacious attitude and mentality. So here's a. I want to make sure. What is the draft? This is from Jesse. What is the draft grade for Trotz, if you had to give him one? I thought Gallagher was a little harsh on the boards with his draft grades, but I understand why he thought that way he did. I think the strategy and the vision, I give him like a B+, an A-, because I think he did exactly what he set out to do. And I just think it's impossible to grade unless, 2 or 3 years out, you can grade whether or not the picks were right. I think the strategy, I give a positive grade to.
Yeah, my inclination was to say B+, maybe even A-, because I think that, again, if you're just going on what Trotz said he was going to do, he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He restocked the defensive pipeline. He got a center with that number 5 pick. He started building his next core. And I think that that's really all you can ask.
Got a high value, with the number 2 goalie in the draft.
Yeah.
Also at value later than he was projected to go.
Another thing that he said he was going to do. And he did.
All right, let's rattle off some of these questions and let me see what you have to say. Question from Ben: is Barry Trotz cut out for this? I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know, and I think anyone who claims to know is full of something, because I think that it's still too early. It's too early to know. Everyone who thinks that they have a handle on Barry Trotz as a GM right now is lying, because we don't have enough of a sample size.
Here's ultimately,
he may be cut out for this. He may not be.
Yeah.
Honestly, is where I'm at, but it's like, it's too early to tell.
I think the thing that keeps landing on me is I feel like, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, I feel like a great GM in any sport sees the big picture long term and has to understand that sometimes there are sacrifices that you have to make to get a piece to where it needs to be, to where it helps you. Meaning, like, if you draft this guy or sign this guy or go after this guy or develop this guy, stay committed and true to what you always saw in that player, and stay committed to the plan and sort of see it through, even if it means, like, hey, maybe you didn't have a good year this year or whatever. And I do feel like sometimes Barry Trotz is too quick to pivot to something else And that feels more like what a head coach would do. It feels more like what a guy playing like an EA Sports would do. Like it feels a little bit more like a coach playing GM instead of a GM being sort of committed to his own vision long term. And this, honestly, if they're decent, Emma, and the defense is better and Saros is playing better and the young kids are still the ones that are kind of struggling on offense, which I think is to be expected, if he goes out and does something big, it's him not sticking to the plan of letting the kids play. So I think you need to stick to the plan. I think that's maybe my question with him is stick to what you thought and be convicted in it, and then be patient because GMs don't play shift to shift, game to game. They have to play year to year.
Yeah, and sometimes even more of that. It's like 5-year chunk to 5-year chunk sometimes. And I think that, this is why, and I've said it before, but that 18-game point streak last year was the worst thing that could have happened to this team because I think
2 years ago, yeah.
2 years ago now, because that is what convinced a lot of us, not only Barry Trotz, but a lot of people, that this team was closer than they actually were. And so that, I think when something like that happens, that's when you maybe pivot from the plan. You'll never get him to admit that. He will never admit it until the day he dies, but he did pivot from the plan.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Ever so briefly. But he may have screwed them over for last year. Like last year, we can all agree, not good. But it's not like he gave up all their draft picks to go and get like Steven Stamkos and all of those guys. I mean, they had the cap space. You can't take it with you. Like, I see what he was doing. It didn't work. And now he is kind of reverting back to the plan. And I don't mean reverting as in like taking a step backwards in a negative way. I mean, like, this is good.
Yeah.
Stick with the plan. And hopefully he's able to do that through this full season.
RZ and Christopher both kind of ask similar questions. Any plans to bring in front office support for Trotz? How many more years do Kelty and Nickel have? Nickel's only been around since 17, I believe, but the other crew has been around a long time. And so I don't know. I think some new blood would be smart. I don't think you have to like axe somebody and make a big deal out of it, but bringing in some analytics guys and maybe some scouting minds and maybe some people with different vision that maybe line up a little bit more with Brunette, because it does feel like Trotz is reverting back to what he knew as an expansion coach. And I don't think he realizes they weren't very good for 5 years at least before they kind of broke through. So I don't know. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I get it. I get it because, again, like Trotz comes in and replaces Poyle, but then all the guys around him stayed exactly the same. So it's Kelty, it's Nickel, it's Brian Poyle. I think that they could benefit from some new, not that anyone, again, I think it's to your point. It's not that any of this is objectively bad. It's just like this is a different organization now, and they're going in a different direction. And I think that maybe you need to, I don't know, just shake things up a little bit.
Let's see here. This is from Matt. Do we think most fan bases are as dramatic and as apocalyptic as the Predators are?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. You're the one who covers this stuff a lot more than I do. Would you try to move anyone off this roster this summer? George says before. This was before the Sissons Lauzon trade. So including the Sissons Lauzon trade, do you think there's anything else? The Rossi conversation is still out there. There's still stuff to be made, or do we think this team is sort of the group that's showing up at camp?
I mean, look, if you can get Rossi, great. But I don't think I've had people ask me already, well, if this is the center depth now, are the Preds fully out on Rossi? It's like, I don't know that they were ever in on Rossi. I think we were in on Rossi and we were saying like, this would be great. And I still think it would be. But if we're being realistic, no, I don't think there's any pieces that you need to move off the roster right now. In terms of, like who's going to be a drag or a dead weight on your team. I mean, listen, we know how I feel about Justin Barron, but I also understand that he is the only right shot defenseman that they have. One of the only. So it's, I get it. I don't think that there's and to his credit, he got better. He got better as the year went on. Still has a lot of room to improve, but he got better. So I think that, if I'm looking at this roster right now and, with what they're trying to do, I don't think after what we saw last year, you don't need any more big seismic changes. Like that is the last thing you need right now. So like this group had enough of a hard time, getting chemistry and playing together last year. Let's not alter that any further.
So I want to go back to sort of the let the kids play thing. He did mention Joachim Kemmel, Matthew Wood, and Reed Schaefer specifically. Those were the names. Do you have a guess as to what the lineup might look like? And I'm not looking to hold you to line combinations. I'm just saying in general. Do you have a feeling of? I mean, is it still LaRue, McCarron, Cole Smith likely on the bottom? Like, is it still Forsberg, O'Reilly, and somebody? Like, what do you make of the lineup? Bunting could play second line wing. He could also play third line wing. It seems like Svechkov and then Halle right now are your 2 and 3. I don't know. I think the Halle trade, I think, is something that is going to set them up to trade both Bunting and Halle potentially at the deadline if they're not in it. So I don't know. What do you, if you had to sort of like loosely project where are you at in terms of the pecking order?
I think your top line is Forsberg, O'Reilly, Marchessault. I think your second line is Bunting, Svechkov, Evangelista. Yeah. Third line would be Halle in the center. Who else do they even have?
LaRue and Matthew Wood. Like, what are we doing?
I don't think Matthew Wood is going to be on this team at the start of the year. I think LaRue, I still think they're going to have LaRue on the fourth line. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I think that they are. It'll definitely be Smith and McCarron on that fourth line. Not that that is a surprise to anyone.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm like envisioning the locker room. Oh yeah, Stamkos. Did I say Stamkos on the second line?
Oh no, you didn't. No, you did not. You said, but you just ignored Stamkos altogether.
Okay, no.
So
it would be Stamkos, Svechkov, and probably Bunting.
I might put. I feel like you want 2 goal scorers with Svechkov.
Yes.
Yes, we did forget Stamkos.
Well, but here's the thing.
I blame Emma entirely.
That's fair. Stamkos but I didn't really sleep last night. Stamkos and Bunting are both goal scorers. They're both very different types of goal scorers, though.
Yeah. I could see Bunting being positioned down low, Stamkos, top of the circle, Svechkov moving around. I do think the problem is like Evangelista is not really wired for a third line.
No. Which is why I would think
it's almost as if they should trade Jonathan Marchessault.
Oh, please don't open that up again. I think that you have like that's where I could see maybe Bunting goes down to the third line. You put Evangelista on the second line with Stamkos and Svechkov. Yeah. You could do Bunting, Halle, and then plug in a third. Maybe it's LaRue, maybe it's someone else. And then
who in I mean, is it Weisblatt? Who else is part of the Schaefer, Wood, Kemmel? Let them play, give them time, give them space. Where are you, like, what are some of the other names? I think Weisblatt's one of them. I do think Reed Schaefer is higher up this list than people realize. I think
yes, he is. People, I think, forget about him because he was injured for so much of last year, which is why I'm not sure he starts the year on this roster just because he did miss so much time last year. But he is definitely one. I still think Kemmel is one, which makes me a little nervous because he was not ready when he came up last year, and that's okay. That's fine. But I would need to see significant improvement for him to be included in that. To me, if you're just going on, I'm not talking about skill or upside or anything like that, but if you're just talking about who is the most NHL ready right now of that group, I say Weisblatt. I thought that he looked great.
I
If you
agree.
bring up Weisblatt, put him on the fourth line with Smith and McCarron, and then put LaRue on the third line with Bunting and Holla. I mean,
Okay, you got a pretty nasty third line there. Not going to
yeah.
score a lot of goals, but they'll knock some heads around. That's for sure.
Well,
Trotz seems
Holla,
high on Schaefer. I agree, Keaton.
yeah, Holla and LaRue will knock some guys around while Bunting gets down in front of the net and scores.
Yep, there you go. No, I don't disagree with that. So, the key is they have some options. I don't know how many are good on offense. They have lots of options. I think they're much better on defense. If you have to sort of like think of it that way. This is from Chris. How should fans grade performance next year? What should be the expectation? Because this will bring the entire conversation sort of full circle. And I'm going to have another bonus pod for you guys this week coming out tomorrow as well, where we're going to talk a little bit more about dev camp and what does success look like, which I know was a couple of questions, Kevin and Tim. Tim says, is this team committed to being more than just a fringe playoff team? And Chris says, how should fans grade their performance? I still think that brings us back to our very first question on the show today. Snickers Beverages is amazing. That's the answer. Shotgun Boys Barbecue is the best brisket in the city. But the question is, what actually are they trying to do this year? And it's the yes, but, and that doesn't like, hey, we'll try to compete, but if not around the deadline, we'll sell. We'll try to compete, and if we are, we'll buy. Like, we let the young kids play and improve the defense. I still don't see a great roster here. I still don't see a playoff roster that's 28 points better than they were last year. So I think you have to show patience and let the kids play, and I think you have to then tell the fans, as he has done now, we're going to try to win a different way, and we're going to let our young talent. We have so much talent in the front, in the forward group, in the AHL. Come on up and let's try to see what they can do, see who rises to the top, and see who sinks. But you got to tell the fans that could mean bad hockey. That could mean lots of losing. You got to be honest with them.
I think we will be honest with them. I don't think Trotz will ever, ever, ever say that you got to be okay with losing. It's just, I don't think he'll do it. It's not incorrect. I just think that he won't. Again, that doesn't mean that they're tanking. I don't think it means all the people who are saying, oh, why are people upset about the Brady Martin pick because they're going to get another top 5 pick next year because they're so bad. First of all, that's not guaranteed. Even if you finish dead last in the league, you don't know. And number 2, I think that I still think this team can be good. I don't think this is a playoff team, but I still think that they can be competitive. I think that they should be better than they did last year. Hard to be worse, but they should do better than they did last year. And I think if you're talking about, how do we measure success with things like the deadline and whatever, I think that at the deadline, if they're out of it, they sell. That's where you get rid of the Hollas and the Buntings and whatnot.
Barron. There's a lot of 1-year deals, but they did just trade 2 of them with Lauzon and
Barron,
Sissons.
McCarron's another one.
Yep.
I think that that's where you start. You sell, but if you're kind of in it at the deadline, I don't think you buy. I still don't think you buy.
I agree. You have to be so convicted and let this group figure it out. And if they do, great, house money. But you can't risk anything if it started to work. Like, this is the point back to the Trotz. Like, if they're decent enough to even be like within 6, 8, 10 points of the playoff spot, that means your vision of improving the defense, giving Saros a little bit more support, and letting some young kids play, and then the veterans have a little bit more lucky and fortuitous seasons. That all worked, which means just stay with it. Don't change it again.
Yeah. Which is why I don't think it's fair to judge Trotz's entire tenure as general manager based on last offseason. We don't have to say that it was good or he did all the right things. We can acknowledge that he deviated from the plan, which he shouldn't have. But if he's now like self-correcting, which he is as of right now, and as long as he does stay the course, then I think that is a good sign. I think you go with a team like, kind of like, I don't know, look at like the St. Louis Blues last year. I mean, they weren't really supposed to be in it, at the deadline, and then they got really hot, but they didn't change anything. They didn't do anything to like mess with the roster. They're like, okay, we got to this point. Let's ride it out. Let's see what we're doing here. And they, took the Jets to 7 games in the first round. So like, if that's the kind of position Nashville is in, fantastic. I think what does become a question now, because Trotz has been very clear on what he wants. He wants the young kids to play. He wants to get that next core ready. Now he and Andrew Brunette need to be aligned on that. And I'm not saying that Andrew Brunette specifically wasn't, or that he was like vocally against that, but I think that just based on Brunette's decision making behind the bench, we did not see a lot of let the young kids play. Yeah. So I think that's something that really needs to change this year, if that is in fact the plan. And honestly, as much as I don't like Colton Sissons being off of this roster, I do think that it takes away a little bit of a safety net for Andrew Brunette, that, maybe allows kind of those younger players to move up the roster and get bigger opportunities.
My thought is that at the deadline, if they're 10, 15 points out and they trade Bunting and Halla in particular, you have no choice but to backfill it with young talent like Matthew Wood and Joachim Kimmel, who at that point should be ready to play. Once you get to 40, 50 games into the season, those two guys in particular should be ready to play. And maybe Weisblatt and Schaefer have already been called up and have played a bunch. And again, we didn't expect Leroux and Svechkov to stick last year, and they came up right away almost and stuck. All the defensemen. I think of all the defensemen, I think Ufko and Wilsby might be the two more interesting ones. Blankenberg, I think, was the most sort of like comfortable, but I also think he's limited. I think Wilsby has a chance to be pretty decent. I thought Del Gaizo had moments as well. He's obviously not going to be a part of this moving forward, probably. But and by the way, they haven't signed Evangelista, I don't think. So
they haven't, but they're going to. They're just working out terms. It's hard with the cap going up that like you're seeing actually a lot of this around the league right now. Yeah. Like I think Preds fans get concerned. Why haven't we re-signed Evangelista? This is happening everywhere right now because the cap is going up. You have a lot of GMs trying to lock in these guys for longer terms at lower AAVs. And the agents are pushing back and saying, now hold on a minute. Like we're not giving you a discount. So
now you're messing with my money. Dat CFO says, I want to see the youngsters, even if they suck next year. No more free agents or trades for guys over 25. I think that's fair. I honestly, if you told me the lineup in the second half of the season was filled with Wood and Molendyke and Weisblatt and Kemmel and Schaefer and Svechkov and Leroux, and like I think fans could get excited about that, but you have to sell what that means, which is we're gonna have growing pains. So I think you just have to talk. You just have to be honest about it. So, what does success look like in 2025? We can get into that as the year goes along. What about Dev Camp? You've been to a couple of these inside the organization, outside. What are you trying to accomplish here? I don't think I think today, Wednesday, Brady Martin's out on the ice today. My hope, like what I would say is he needs to look like the best player or one of the best players pretty clearly. And if he does, then he's got a chance to come in and make some noise in camp. But otherwise, Molendyke needs to look like a guy ready for the NHL. Like these guys I don't need to see anything specifically. I just need to see them look the part, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was at the first practice day on Monday. Couple of my just immediate observations. Igor Surin he bulked up. He put on some weight. He looks bigger.
What is he, like 19 years old?
Yeah, but he looks like last year he looked like a little boy. Now he doesn't.
Right.
And I will say Andrew
He's the Russian player, right? Like he's from Russia.
Yeah.
KHL.
He likes to hit people.
Russian hit hard, work hard, bulk up. I like it.
So again, I think that's what people were scared. They're like, that's what Brady Martin is. That's not what Brady Martin is, you guys. Brady Martin's like 6 feet tall and he can throw the body around, but he's not just an all hit guy.
Everybody says like, oh, they're redundant players. I'm like, no, Zach Leroux and Igor Surin might be redundant players. I think Brady Martin is a top flight center prospect.
Yes. Yes.
The fans will come around on this. They'll understand that they're projecting a lot of their James Hagen's discontent around on Brady Martin. So
No, I get it. No, Igor Surin looks bigger. Andrew Gibson looks a lot more cut. And Tanner Molendyke still looks like one of the best players out there. Brady Martin's got a hell of a shot too. I saw him bury a couple out there, and like he looks comfortable. He looks good. The kid also does not lack for confidence, and I think that
his interviews remind me of Tanner Molendyke.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're just comfortable.
He's a little bit more jovial to me than Tanner Molendyke.
True.
Molendyke is definitely comfortable. He looks the most NHL ready. It was also funny to me how old and distinguished Matthew Wood looks now next to the rest of these kids at Dev Camp. He's like the elder statesman now. But I think that
I've played in the NHL.
No, and like he's not like that, but it's like
no, I know.
You see these kids walking around and it's like, oh, one of these is not like the other. Like one of them is bigger and he looks more comfortable and more poised.
Dude, the press conference with Reed, Cameron Reed and Riker Lee, I was just like, do these kids go to my daughter's daycare? Like,
yeah.
I was like, oh my God, you guys are so young. And they look very like they do look like kids that like he's a sweet kid. And I know that's very condescending for a professional who's an adult to say that about a very good athlete, but it's just like,
but they are children.
I'm so old now. I'm so old. And I'm just looking at it going like, oh my God.
Well,
ridiculous.
Here's how I can tell is how polite they are to me. I'm like, oh, this will change.
Ma'am,
this
sir.
will change. Yeah. I'm like, if you call me ma'am, I will slap you. But I think this is something where it's like I walk in the NHL room and guys kind of treat me like a peer. Oh, hey, what's up? You know, whatever. And then like in here, it's like, oh, hello, ma'am. Yes. And it's like, okay, I'm not your boss. Like,
Madam President, podcast host, madam.
Yeah.
How are you, madam?
I'm like, all right.
It's funny. We forget Stiga and Surin are largely lost in the conversation all the time because it's not this year's draft class, but they're not ready enough or close enough to be contributing yet. So it's like, but there's a whole nother wave in there. There's another wave of players that it's not just Kemmel and Wood. There's another wave. And then there's going to be Martin in this draft class. So,
right.
By the way, I want to point this out. Gavin McKenna, 130 points in these OHA for Medicine Hat last year. He's listed at 5'11", 165. Just want to point that out. He's not listed as a 6'4", 210 guy. So,
you know who else really impressed me, who I admittedly did not know much about before they drafted him, was Jacob Rombach.
He's huge.
Big. He's huge. And like, I don't know. He's listed as like the same size as Michael McCarron. I think he might be bigger.
He's listed at 6'7", 209.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
Yeah.
The last time I commented on how huge a prospect was, it did not go well for me in the comment section because people are jerks. But
Which one was that?
Magnus Krona.
Oh, yeah, he was huge. Also huge.
He's huge, but I'm a woman and I can't talk about a man's size.
Can't talk about size? Can't talk about a man's size. All right, fair enough.
Can't talk about size without someone making an inappropriate comment.
So it does matter, is what you're saying.
Jacob Rombach is very tall, is what I'm saying. He's a very tall man. Very, very tall.
It's more about how you skate than how tall you are, is what I'm hearing. Got it.
And well, but he also, like, for how tall he is, that actually is where I was going with this. For how tall he is, he moves very well. Very, very well. And I think that he also was very poised, carried himself very well.
Yep.
I really enjoyed talking to him. Again, this is another thing where you realize how young these kids are, where it's like after like 2 questions, I'm like, anything to add to that?
I feel uncomfortable standing here now.
Yes, and it's like and then that's the other thing where like
you guys were in high school last month.
Like if the interview's over and you want to just like kind of shoot the shit, I'm like, oh, I don't know. What do
you talk about? You're like,
I don't know what to talk about.
So like you into Fortnite or
yeah, like what I don't even know. Like honest to God, I don't understand half the things that Gen Z says anymore. Like it's foreign language to me.
Skibbity toilet, man.
Yeah, what the fuck is that? I'm just saying, like that's the thing.
No cap.
And I also am very skeeved out by people who are my age who try to talk like that.
That's
I'm
sus,
like,
Emma. That's sus.
don't do that. It is sus. Don't do that. Or people older than me who try to talk like that, Braden.
Who are you referring to? I am older than you, but here's the thing. I'm doing it strategically. I'm not doing it to be cool or to be anything. I'm doing it because I need to know the words that my daughters are about to start using. Now, I'm sure there'll be a new wave, but I need to know some of it now to know what's out of style so that I can know what's in style in like 4 years when they're texting and tweeting about me and telling all their friends about how weird old dad doesn't understand anything, but they're saying it in language and words that I secretly do know. Here's the other one. Here's the other strategy, not to get off on a parenting tangent here, but I've started to do, because this is, if you want them to stop saying the words that you don't like, you just have to start using them a lot and they'll stop using them. It's the same thing with the songs, and they might be too young for this, because there's this that Benson dude. They're really into the Benson dude. Yeah, they're really into that guy. And the well, I need you. I hate that song so much. It's terrible writing. The other one that my daughter likes is actually pretty good. The mystical, magical one is pretty hooky. But the one that they love is that I need you, I want you, or whatever. And they sing. And so I just like sing it over the top as loud as possible. And it's a risky move, because as my wife said, they're 7 and 8. There's a chance that they see dad get into it and they're like, they still like us. And they're like, oh, they're really into this. I can love this too. They may not be of the age where, like, maybe next year I can start singing it really loud and they're like, oh, dad, gross. Ugh. And then they'll stop listening to that garbage. So it's all mental war, Emma, at my house right now. So anyway.
Yeah, that is just
no cap.
Psychological warfare over there.
No cap. All right. Honestly, what would I ask a 17-year-old boy about his personal life? I'm like, so how are exams? Like, I don't know what I don't like.
Well, and you
like Jordan, you like Jordan 1s or Jordan 3s? Like, I don't know. Like, how do you feel about no-show socks? Like, I'm a no-show sock guy. What are you guys?
I was also such a loser when I was that age that I'm like, I can't even think about like what I would have talked about or been into. Like, I was such a nerd. I was getting straight A's in school, and I'm like, I don't know. I just think that, like, again, like, we finished the interview with Brady Martin, and I was next to him, and I wanted to be like, all I said was like, welcome to Nashville. Because
been to any good restaurants? Oh no, you can't go out to eat. Been to any good brew? No, you can't go. You can't drink. Like, have you been to Broadway yet? No, you can't go to Broadway. Like,
that was the best part. He said his favorite part of the week was walking down Broadway and then going to Beer Fest, which was so funny because obviously he did not partake, but it just objectively sounds funny.
As the kids would say, GTFOH. He is a farm boy from Canada who just got picked fifth in the draft. That dude knows how to drink beer. I'm sorry.
Oh, he has partaken in the past. I'm saying he didn't partake at the Predators Foundation
beer fest. Of course not.
But he was there.
Daniel says, really thinking we're going to look back and see Riker Lee as a steal at 26. Lots of offensive upside, scoring winger, pretty good with his hands and space. Once Lee gets used to his new body, he's going to be a dude in the league, says Lop. Any thoughts on Riker Lee before we go?
No, I agree.
Cameron Reed, for that matter.
Yeah, I like them both. I do agree. I think Lee is going to be a guy that,
they took their shot.
Considered a steal. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they took some upside shot with him. I think they moved up to get their guy who is sort of like another version of Molendijk with Reed, and then got their future captain / alternate / one of their top 2 centers for the future. So I don't know if all the picks were right, but I think the strategy, I get it. I can see that he executed his strategy. Is he good at this? Barry Trotz. Is he going to win because of this strategy? Who knows? We'll see. Sinkers Beverages. Tickets are available now. Basement East, August 9th on a Saturday, $10. You get food, music, drinks, all kinds of cool stuff. And there's going to be some giveaways, some raffles. All the money goes to charity, and it's going to be a great party for Sinker's 40th birthday at Basement East, August 9th. So come on out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Tickets are only $10. And Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, of course, open Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., Wednesday through Sunday. Right now, you can go get that barbecue right now. The best brisket in the city. Emma, always a pleasure. Great to see you. Are you a big 4th of July fan? Like, do you party at all? Like, do you throw the fireworks up? Return to me with all of your fingers and toes next week, please. I'm a father. I'm trying to be a dad here. So everybody be careful and give your dog a benzo before you start shooting fireworks. All right.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're a trazodone family. I will be drugging my dog heavily.
You're also in the middle, like me. We're both in the middle of like people are shooting fireworks until like all hours of the night on 4th of July weekend. So
here's my biggest.
It'll start Thursday night. It's gonna start Thursday night.
So my biggest beef with that is not even the all hours of the night thing. It's the fact that they start so damn early. Why are you shooting fireworks when it's still light outside? Why? What's the point?
As a father of 2 daughters who can't really stay up till like 10 p.m. but really, really love fireworks, I don't hate that like the neighbors do a show at like 7:30. You know, like I'm okay with that. You know,
well,
I don't hate that.
As the owner,
but I get your point. I get your point.
As the owner of a dog who refuses to go outside, if we're inside when the fireworks are happening, she's okay. Outside, nope. So when I literally can't get her to go to the bathroom at all, anytime after like 6 p.m., it becomes a problem.
My new pup, well, last year he was new in June, so he had a 4th of July with us, but he was still acclimating. So he was very, I think, just sort of like all the time about everything. So I don't think it affected him. So it'll be interesting now that he's been comfortable and he's been here for a year. It'll be interesting to see how he handles 4th of July in the inner urban core of Davidson County. We'll see. Where technically fireworks are illegal.
Yes. Again, dating a cop, living with a cop, and he would love for everyone to be reminded of that as well.
Technically.
You're not infringing on your rights if we tell you to stop setting off your fireworks because they are illegal.
Whisker do's, whisker don'ts. I just like snakes and sparklers. All right. Have a great 4th, everybody. Happy birthday, America. For Emma, I am Braden. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. The vision, we can all see it. Let's just hope he's making the right decisions. Otherwise, Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Have a great one. We will be back next week. Have a great holiday weekend. Talk to you later, everybody.